Hello there. Welcome to Just the Discs. My name is Brian, and we talk about physical media here. We talk about boutique labels. We talk about sometimes recommendations. I'm doing something special today. We're obviously talking about Ken Russell's cult classic Altered States, which has just gotten a 4K release from Criterion. But in addition to that, we'll talk about that movie. But I decided this time I would also put together a group of recommendations for stuff you can watch before or after you watch Altered States. So anyway, Altered States, very cool to get this in the Criterion collection. It's one of those movies that I've been a fan of for a long time and is just a really trippy, fascinating movie. Truly one of a kind from a one of a kind director in Ken Russell, who, did things like Tommy and Lair of the White Worm, which is actually maybe, I'm trying to think if that's like the closest to this. He didn't do anything quite like this, but he did do a lot of movies about singular driven people, often artists. He's got several movies about composers like Litzomania and Mahler and the Music Lovers. And The Devils, of course, is another big one with Oliver Reed, which, gosh, I hope that gets a release at some point. But anyway, this is very exciting to get this movie in the collection. It's a really cool, trippy cult movie. The ultimate cinematic head trip of the 1980s, British renegade Ken Russell's first Hollywood production. Didn't know that. Adapted by the legendary screenwriter Paddy Chayefsky from his own novel, which, by the way, this disc includes a lovely audio commentary by film historian Sam Deegan, one of my favorites, and she mentions the conflict between Paddy Chayefsky and Ken Russell. Apparently, Paddy Chayefsky was creatively in charge of this movie, and I can't remember how she said Ken Russell gets attached, but at some point they had some kind of differences of opinion, and, there was some infighting, and even Ken Russell asking the actors to deliver Paddy Chayefsky's dialogue in like unflattering ways, like while eating and stuff like that. And so I guess eventually he took his name off the project and credited himself under a pseudonym, but I didn't realize that. One of the most unique to his other work things that Paddy Chayefsky ever did, this is the same guy that did things like Network, and even The Hospital and Marty, and so this one is really a standout, different kind of movie than what he had ever done before, and I honestly think it's one of the most interesting. And I like Network, I like his other work, I like The Hospital, but this one to me just always resonated for some reason. Anyway, part hallucinogenic freakout, part gonzo creature feature, part transcendent love story. I would also add part mad scientist movie, which is part of how I paired these. Gave some suggestions here. All played at a fever pitch, when researcher Eddie Jessup, William Hurt, begins using himself as a test subject for his mind-expanding psychological experiments. It sends him on an increasingly dangerous, substance-fueled odyssey from humankind's primordial past to the outer limits of consciousness. It's all visualized by Russell in a psychedelic supernova of out-there imagery that encompasses everything from the pagan to the cosmic sublime, culminating in a brainwave blasting battle between the mind and the heart. It's really like 2001-esque towards the end. It really gets very trippy. And Jessup's character even goes so far as to go down to Mexico, where he hangs with some kind of indigenous tribe and tries some psychedelics, and then uses them in his experimentations with the tanks that he's using, these sensory deprivation tanks. And more movies should use those, by the way. I had a friend in college who wrote a script that he described as equal parts Altered States, With Nail and I want to say Pulp Fiction, but I can't remember. But I had never heard of With Nail and I at that time. Anyway, and it opened with this guy in a sensory deprivation tank in his living room, and I just always thought that was a fascinating idea. But yeah, so Jessup is played by William Hurt. He's backed up by another scientist played by Bob Balaban, and it's, it's a really interesting cast. Blair Brown plays another character that falls for William Hurt's character. I guess Drew Barrymore's in this. John Larroquette. I forgot about some of these folks. But anyway, yeah, it's just really one of a kind and a movie that I really dug. They just played this as a midnight at the Vista here in Los Angeles not that long ago. And that's a lovely choice. Okay, so in terms of the particulars of this release, it is a new 4K digital restoration with 2.0 surround DTS HD master audio soundtrack, also an alternate 5.1 track DTS HD. It has one 4K UHD disc with the film presented in Dolby Vision HDR and one Blu-ray with the film and special features. Again, the new audio commentary featuring film historian Sam Deegan. I think this is only her second audio commentary for Criterion. I think she did Godzilla vs. Biollante. But yeah, this is her second track, and it's great. She's a fantastic person to do this movie. I almost couldn't think of somebody better. So really, really solid choice and a great track. Also included here are archival interviews, 2 of them, and then a new interview. So we have a Ken Russell interview from 1980 with talk show host Paul Ryan, and it's Russell discussing his life and career, including Altered States. Like I said it's from 1980. It's 26 minutes, which is very cool to see that. And William Hurt, Ken Russell no longer with us. William Hurt no longer with us. So William Hurt, this is an excerpted 2009 interview at the 92nd Street Y, moderated by film historian Annette Insdorf, with actor William Hurt discussing screenwriter Patty Chayefsky and the experience of working on Altered States. It's about 6.5 minutes. And then there's a new interview with Brand Farron, produced by the Criterion Collection in July 2025. Special visual designer Brand Farron, who also worked on Little Shop of Horrors from 1986, the remake, Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, and Second Sight, the John Larroquette, Bronson Pinchot psychic movie, the other psychic movie I always think of that came out around the time of Vibes. I guess it's a couple years. No, I think they're both like 88. Anyway, just a strange phenomenon. There were these psychic movies, and I guess he did some special visual design for that movie as well. But this is obviously one of his crowning achievements. I think he worked on Death Trap, and I forget what visual design elements would have been needed for that, but I'm curious now. But so he discusses working on Altered States here as well. And so that's all for the supplements. And then, of course, as usual, there is an essay included, and it's by film critic Jessica Kiang. And I will just read a little excerpt from it, as I'm wont to do. Fireworks crackle inside a cave. A snake tightens its coil around a man's head. A couple in Edwardian dress eat ice cream against a backdrop of merry yellow flowers made sinister by their lush inverse perspective hugeness, while every instrument on the orchestral soundtrack goes on a berserker rampage in search of a tune. A slashed hand births stars, a blood meridian sunsets, a lizard turns into a woman. Suddenly, though, the gorgeous, garish assault of image and sound gets slow, goes quiet. The woman, naked and basking, is observed by the man lying not far away. He tucks an elbow under his head as sand blows in around them, perhaps the sands of time itself, and keeps blowing, collecting in billows and drifts against the two figures until soon they too are sand. Anyway, she's talking about the climactic sequence here. Ken Russell's 1980 film is gleefully baroque, as befits the sensibilities of its director, yet the story is simple, as dictated by the declarative mad-as-hell impulses of screenwriter Paddy Chayefsky of Network fame. Eddie Jessup is a respected psychopathologist who comes to believe that by ingesting a powerful hallucinogen while in an isolation tank, he can access aspects of the human condition that may have lain dormant since prehistory, much to the consternation of his reluctant accomplices, scientists Arthur Rosenberg, Bob Balaban, and Mason Parrish. Charles Hayde. He is proved correct, even at one point physically transforming into a simian proto-human, played by dancer Miguel Godreau in a grotesquely convincing full-body hairsuit, courtesy of makeup maven Dick Smith. Oh, I didn't know Dick Smith worked on this. Very cool. But soon the transformations and deformations are occurring unprompted, which is especially disturbing to Eddie's wife, Emily, Blair Brown, a brilliant anthropologist who, despite keeping company with his cadre of geniuses, often seems like the only one in the room with a lick of sense. Because as much as Altered States through Jessup searches for some singular, irreducible truth that will make all the chaos and suffering of existence meaningful, it is also about the sheer hubris of such an ambition, the grandiose and here very masculine folly of it all, as directed by the indefatigable enfant terrible Russell, who treats the Gustier passages of Chayefsky's screenplay with a giddy disdain that drove Chayefsky up the wall and off the project, and some say even hastened his death at 58, mere months after Altered States was released. Anyway, a very nice start to that essay and a very solid release from Criterion. I'm very excited about this disc. And as I said, I have some recommendations to offer as well. I think there's a lot of mad scientist in this, movie. It's definitely part of the DNA of the movie. Naturally, one turns to something like Reanimator, the Stuart Gordon classic, which has less of the transformative aspects that I think I looked for a little bit in some of these. But, this is a big one. This, I think, just got announced for 4K. And by the way, exciting news today from Criterion as I'm recording this on the 15th of October is that both Captain Blood, the swashbuckler with Errol Flynn, is coming, finally getting a Blu-ray and a 4K, and Dead Man, Jim Jarmusch's film Dead Man, is getting a 4K from Criterion, as well as a bunch of other stuff, including a World Cinema Project new volume and a whole bunch of cool stuff. Anyway, there's a new 4K of Reanimator, I think already out or coming, but this is the old Arrow Blu-ray, which I haven't cracked open yet even. But, so, I like Reanimator, but I think for this, I'm more into the idea of From Beyond, which is, for me, probably my favorite Stuart Gordon film. And because it is just this wonderful, mad scientist thing about a resonator, which is a powerful machine that can control the sixth sense, and it can basically allow you to cross dimensions, and it ups your libido, and it's an interesting actually role reversal for Jeff Combs and Barbara Crampton. She's more the scientist and he's more the subject in this, with Ken Foree. And anyway, I just think this movie's crazy and the effects are insane, on the level of what happens in terms of body horror in Altered States. I think this is my prime recommendation. Like, if you haven't seen From Beyond, I think it is a wonderful double with Altered States. It's really, really fantastic. This is the Vinegar Syndrome 4K. Next up, I'd recommend the Kindred. This is the Blu-ray from Synapse, and this features a mad scientist type played by Rod Steiger, and he... How do they put it? I'm just curious. Kim Hunter is Dr. Amanda Hollins, a molecular scientist who calls on her son, John David Allen Brooks, to eliminate all evidence of her genetic experiments, most specifically her Anthony journals. Dr. Philip Lloyd, Rod Steiger, an acquaintance of Hollins, who is familiar with the experiments, wants to continue her studies no matter what the cost. John heads to his isolated childhood home with a group of friends to uncover his mother's research and destroy it all. There's something else in the house, however, something watching and waiting, a tentacled creature born from the desire to alter human illusion. It's evil, it's mad, it's ready to kill. Fantastic, really dark, crazy creature effects. Was so psyched when this Blu-ray came out. I think it works also with Altered States. Another one, let's see here. Let's do this. All right, so we shall try Body Parts, Eric Red's film from Kindred from 87, Body Parts from 91, excuse me. This just played as part of the wonderful New Beverly annual horror show surprise features that they do at the New Bev, and played great. And there was a bunch of people in the crowd who'd never seen it. Definitely its own mad science kind of movie where you have a man, a psychologist, I believe he's a prison psychologist, played by Jeff Fahey, who gets in a horrible car accident and has his arm crushed and ripped off. And through this new revolutionary technique, this British doctor is able to give him a new arm. Unfortunately, she does not tell him that the arm comes from a mass murderer, and he comes to start to have horrible visions and not be able to control the arm. It does violent things, and then he starts to find the other people who have received parts from this killer. There's a painter played wonderfully by Brad Dourif, who's now making the best art of his life, but which is actually visions of this horrible killer's mind killing people, and another basketball player guy who gets the legs, and each one is having their own issues with the body parts, and it gets dark, and it has one of the best horror film car chases I've ever seen, where there's an arm, the arm is in play. But yeah, this is the new 4K from Kino, very nice. So that's a recommend. Another one from Arrow, this one's called Scalpel, and it is from 1977, also known as False Face. And this one's about a psychopathic plastic surgeon Scalpel stars Lansing as Dr. Philip Reynolds, a man whose daughter Heather Judith Chapman from As the World Turns and Young and the Restless. He basically wants to recreate his daughter about an inheritance. It's this crazy story, and it's one of those things where it's such a weird Southern Gothic take on this sort of story that I'm always been fascinated by it. Very cool movie for sure for this. Then we have, let's see here, Dreamscape, the movie starring Kate Capshaw and Dennis Quaid, and this one, and of course Christopher Plummer and Max von Sydow, and this one kind of like Nightmare on Elm Street. You have a psychic character played by Dennis Quaid, who gets brought in on this special assignment to help these psychic researchers who are trying to help with people entering dreams, and in this case they're trying to help the president, played by Eddie Albert, who's having these horrible apocalyptic nightmares. But there's also some kind of plan to make assassins. It's a little Inception, it's a little Nightmare on Elm Street before both of those, although I can't remember if there was some influence of the Nightmare script on this. But David Patrick Kelly also plays a villain in it. This played at Video Archive Cinema Club recently on VHS, I think. But lovely, the old Scream Factory 2K scan of the Blu-ray. Beyond the Black Rainbow from Mr. Panos Cosmatos. Held captive in a specialized medical facility, a young woman with unique abilities seeks a chance to escape her obsessed captor. Set in the strange and oppressive emotional landscape of the year 1983, Beyond the Black Rainbow is a Reagan-era fever dream inspired by hazy childhood memories of midnight movies and Saturday morning cartoons. From the producer of Coattail Drop, Rainbow is the Outlandish feature film debut. Great soundtrack on this one. But yeah, kind of mad scientist-y, trippy. I think that's a good choice. Within the Homegrown Horrors Volume 1 set, we have my favorite of all these sets, which is Beyond Dream's Door. And this one is not quite mad scientist. It's about a guy who hasn't been sleeping well. He is having these terrifying dreams of monsters, and it's sort of like dream enters reality. And I feel like there's a little bit of that in Altered States. But a really great lower budget feature. One of my favorite discoveries from Vinegar Syndrome. Full stop. I love that movie. So that's another one. From TerrorVision, The Jar. Again, not quite mad scientist, but trippy stuff. About a guy who finds an old man who's injured on the side of the road, and he brings him home to clean him up. The old man tells Paul about a jar that he cannot leave there, and for him to pick it up. Paul then gets home, and the old man disappears, but the jar remains and consumes him. So there's sort of a, being consumed by a being kind of thing that I feel like can sort of cross into this with Altered States. Really, really great movie. Lovely, 235 scan of it. It's, a movie that had been relegated to, cropped VHS releases. And seeing it on this Blu-ray just blew my mind. Also known as Charon. But yeah, definitely high recommend, and great features with the director and just making really good stuff. Also, we have the 9th Configuration from Shout or Scream Factory. William Peter Blatty brings you a psychologically challenging exploration of faith, suffering, and madness with cult favorite, the 9th Configuration. In the final days of the Vietnam War, a remote castle in the Pacific Northwest serves as a mental hospital for troubled soldiers scarred by the experiences. Isolated and all but forgotten, the inmates are running the asylum until Colonel Kane, Stacy Keach, arrives to take over their treatment, taking a special interest in one of the new patients, former astronaut Billy Cutshaw, played by Scott Wilson, who inexplicably aborted his mission to the moon during its final countdown. This is another one that's just trippy and weird. Lots of people saying weird stuff. Kind of science, but not a lot, but just kind of feels like it fits. And lastly, another just weird, trippy movie that fits the psychedelic is The Visitor. In this unforgettable assault on reality, fully restored and presented completely uncut for the first time ever in HD, legendary Hollywood director, actor John Huston stars as an intergalactic warrior who joins a cosmic Christ figure in battle against a demonic 8-year-old girl and her pet hawk, while the fate of the universe hangs in the balance. Multi-dimensional warfare, pre-adolescent profanity, and brutal avian attacks combine to transport the viewer to a state unlike anything they've ever experienced, somewhere between hell, the darkness reaches of outer space, and Atlanta, Georgia. So, super trippy and weird, like the most trippy sequences of Altered States. But anyway, just some recommendations to go with what is definitely going to be among my favorite releases of 2025 from Criterion. This is the 4K UHD, which the transfer looks great. I love to see these Warner Brothers films getting done through Criterion, and this one turned out lovely. So definitely check it out. And I will be back very soon to talk about more physical media. Thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.